Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Accedo Playback podcast, the podcast discussing the latest in industry news, trends, and tech advancements in the OTT and streaming industry. My name is Stanley Auger, and it gives me great pleasure to finally bring you our first ever episode of the Accedo Playback podcast, and to do so alongside my friend and colleague, Neil Van Zyl. Neil, how are you doing?
Hey, Stanley. I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm super excited to be a part of the podcast. We're really looking forward for the opportunity to just kind of share some of our knowledge and expertise in the streaming and OTT industry. And who better to do that with than Accedo's VP of North America, Mrugesh Desai. Mrugesh, how are you?
Hey, Neil and Stanley. Thanks for having me on this. Very exciting to kick this off. You guys have done a great job putting together, Accedo's first ever external podcast. I think our ability to give back to the industry that's been very kind to us over the years is a very, very compelling thing to be involved in, not just for myself, but all the future participants. I'm also a little bit nervous. Would love to hear all the questions you guys are going to throw at me. I'm sure I've got good answers to some, not so great answers to others, and I'll probably be shrugging my shoulders to some other things. But nonetheless, I think this open forum and ability to talk about the industry and technical and business topics at large is something really exciting, and I'm thrilled to be part of the first podcast.
Yeah, and of course, Mrugesh being our first guest on the episode, we're going to have loads more going forward. But Mrugesh, I think that you have just a complete, or at least I like to think, a complete understanding of what we do in our business at Accedo, but also just a great lay of the land. And the first thing that we want to talk about in this episode, and a great sort of kickstart to episodes going forward as well, is NAB. Obviously lots to talk about there, and maybe I'll just start with it's a centennial anniversary, 100 years. So did you want to talk a little bit about the history of NAB, as well as who will be there and what can we expect from the show?
Yeah, so the NAB, or the National Association of Broadcasters, is probably the marquee television broadcaster conference in North America that's held every year in Las Vegas. To your point, we certainly had an interesting ride through COVID. There were some NABs that were canceled. There was NAB that was held last year in person for the first time, but certainly wasn't at the attendance levels that I was used to. So 2023 and being back at NAB in April, I think is going to signify a return to what it really used to be. And what's super exciting about NAB this year is it's the Centennial event. It's the 100th NAB. I was a little bit set aback when I heard it's the 100th event, because the first thing that triggered in my head is, has television been around for 100 years? Lo and behold, it hasn't. So I think as a bit of a history lesson, NAB at its inception was actually known as the NARB, the National Association of Radio Broadcasters. Which makes sense, and since has evolved into being a little bit more television and broadcaster focused. It's been a very important event for Accedo to attend over the years. It's an opportunity to meet our customers, our partners. We've been able to meet all the new OTT brands that have emerged in the last 10 or so years. There's also a whole host of technology vendors who are in attendance, some of whom are our competitors, some of whom we partner with. So it's just a great event to actually learn in person how the industry is evolving. And we typically have a booth experience, which we will have this year, where we showcase all the latest and greatest innovations coming out of our company. And this year in particular has a number of highlights for us. In particular, just a few weeks ago, we announced the acquisition of a company called iCandy Lab, an extended reality company. And this is really to supercharge our thinking around, how video will play itself out, both from an AR and VR perspective. So very excited for us to be back at the show in full force. We seem to have a growing list of attendance. every week. I think there'll be almost 15 people from Accedo joining this year. And if you're going to be out there, please do visit our booth, and I'm sure we'll be visiting yours as well.
It's great to see the Centennial Show line up with most countries being fully opened again post-COVID. All right, without further ado, let's get into the topics. There's obviously a few big buzzwords going around, and one of the most important is fast. What do you see coming out of NAB for fast momentum?
Yeah, so I think, firstly, the why behind fast is important to understand. There's been this explosion with fast services, which, it's a very explicit acronym, free ad-supported TV. It is what it is, right? So it's the ability for consumers to have an OTT service that has free content, both linear and VOD. And for the services who deploy this, it's a way to, basically increase audience reach, right? Not everyone is willing to pay a subscription for an OTT service, or perhaps they are paying for a subscription to a couple of services, but would like to sort of augment that with additional content, especially with sort of linear content, right? Stuff they can just throw on screen and have as background TV. So, most of the major OEMs, for example, have launched their own fast services, whether that's Roku or Vizio or Samsung and others. You're also seeing owned and operated fast services launch. So think of something like Pluto TV. It's sort of coming down to all the original content creators, both from a linear content perspective and VOD perspective, deciding how can we best leverage the massive catalog of content do we have. Some of it can be monetized behind a paywall, but there's probably a huge part of our catalog that can't, but can we still monetize it in a different way? And using an ad-supported model has been the industry's answer to doing this. I think the fast industry at large is a very relevant and apt topic at the moment. At NAB, I don't see that slowing down by any measure. I think most content brands are exploring different strategies to leverage the audience reach of fast. What we're predicting is, some of the larger content services are going to look at more owned and operated services in addition or in parallel to launching their content via the fast aggregators. This is something we feel is going to play out over the next couple of years. I think everyone is willing to do some of that experimentation. Some of the really leading brands have completely differentiated between their paid OTT service and their fast service. Again, Pluto is a good example where you have Pluto contrasting Paramount Plus. I think it's going to be the year or 2 years of continued experimentation to see if a fast model is going to lead to increased audience reach and revenue potential for content brands out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you saw one of Evan Shapiro's recent posts on LinkedIn. He had a nice graph from Nielsen showing that Peacock, Tubi, and Pluto together had almost the 7% of the U.S. streaming share in February 2023. So it's already got a lot of momentum, but it's definitely got plenty of room to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, for those of you not familiar with Evan Shapiro, I think we all can agree, great person to follow on LinkedIn, constantly sharing industry news, industry perspective, awesome infographics. It's amazing to sort of see the shift in what audiences are leveraging in terms of the core OTT services. I think there's a recent statistic that says your average American consumer is subscribing to at least 7 OTT services, disparate OTT services. But at a certain point, there's going to be the saturation of how much can I spend directly on procuring these independent services, and possibly if you still think you have a content gap, then fast could fill that void for you.
We've talked about fast already, sort of came organically. I don't even know if you call that almost innovation, but can we talk about maybe some other, innovative things that are happening at NAB? And we know those buzzwords like, again, fast or XR, VR. What are some other cool technologies that we can now look forward to seeing at NAB?
So I'll probably answer this more from the Accedo perspective, which might be a little bit of a selfish perspective.
I wouldn't expect you to do it any other way, to be honest.
We're a little bit obviously closer to the market trends that we're following. So for us in general, one of the core themes of the show will be around sports. We think there's going to be an increase in digital sports innovation and investment thrown into this. Coming back to the earlier comments about extended reality, I think newer technology, whether that's XR or voice-assisted technology or something like OpenAI, lends itself very, very well to audiences who are already early adopters of technology. The sort of super fan audience, if you will, tends to actually be early adopters of technology. So one of the things that we are increasingly seeing is your sports fan is not just sort of reliant on the live broadcast to sort of appreciate the content. They want to really understand the stats behind the players, the teams, the leagues, etc. And today, that's all consumed in a very sort of two-dimensional way, right? You might have a mobile application for your typical sports service that surfaces these things. But we think, extended reality in particular will be able to surface these use cases in much more of an interesting way. So, think about your live sports broadcast on the big screen. It could be something like, golf tournaments, but with sort of your, extended reality device, and specifically around augmented reality use cases, you could render, the charting of a particular hole in that golf course right onto your coffee table. You can see the trajectory when Tiger Woods, tees off. You can, see if Tiger outdrove himself from last year. It will infuse, data and the stats richness that sports provides to actually really augment the live broadcast in a very, innovative and intuitive way. Right? Not everyone wants to sort of read line-by-line statistics. If you could actually visualize statistics by way of XR, we think that's a really compelling use case. So we are showcasing some of our mass market deployments and POCs around extended reality in sports at the show, including some of the great work that iCandy Lab has done previously. But we also expect many of our partners in the industry to be showcasing the same. And then to my comment about something like OpenAI, think about sort of a chat-driven AI solution whereby if you are watching a live broadcast and you're like, hey, I'd love to know how Tiger Woods has played that particular hole over the last 5 years, and it gives you this customized rendition of every tee shot he's taken on that hole for the last 5 years, whether he was averaging below or under par, and you could get a readout of all these scores on that hole for all those years. That is not something today that your typical stats model can do, but sort of think about this AI-driven use case where you've got amazing raw data out there in the universe, but the response that it elicits for the user will actually be very, very specific to their wants and need about understanding the statistics. So contextual statistics with sports and extended reality and AI, I think is an amazing innovation that is going to just accelerate over the next few years.
And Mrugesh, I want to take that one step further, because we almost see that with sports betting, right? So, can you draw any parallels there, and maybe, what does this mean for sports betting, and, or just, if we can talk a little bit more about sports betting and, how that fits into sort of our model of technology and what we do.
Yeah. So, Accedo isn't involved today in digital sports betting. However, we are observing the industry closely. In North America in particular, sports betting is being deregulated province to province if you're in Canada, or state to state in the United States. And I think the contextual statistics that will be offered by way of the use cases I mentioned also would lend itself very well to the sports betting user. Before you place a bet on anything really, whether it's as simple as who will win the sports game, or is Tiger gonna outdrive himself from last year? If you're able to call on your OTT service or standalone digital sports service to give you that context of what's happened in the past, that's powerful contextual information for the user to place bets that they feel a little bit more confident about. And I think it also just adds to the gameplay, right? It just makes things a lot more interesting. Like, who can actually, it's an even playing field, right? All the statistics are available out in the wild, but can you as a user ask the right questions to get the right inputs back to then place bets where you feel you're basically gonna have better odds than your friend next door who's trying to do the same thing. So I think from that perspective, it makes it a lot more interesting for the end user.
Yeah, we'll leave it to the young guy to ask about something surrounding betting. I know it's definitely something that I'm hearing a lot of. I almost thought that we would be talking about the viewing experience and maximizing that, but it's almost like now stats and betting is almost just come out of nowhere. It seems definitely big during the pandemic era. Another thing that I wanted to ask you, and it's actually something that I wouldn't consider too much in the field of OTT or even technology for that matter, but sustainability. I just want to talk about that for a second because it's a really big focus point at NAB this year. I just want to talk about what it means to you, and what does it actually look like in hitting some of these targets, and who creates these targets.
Yeah, sustainability is a very important topic here at Accedo. In fact, we consider ourselves, ecosystem pioneers when it comes to setting sustainability goals for us as a company, but also in starting the industry's thinking about really core solutions that will lead to more sustainable video services over time. Video processing, consumption, distribution is obviously something that leverages a lot of computer outputs and electricity needs and power. So there's ongoing innovations throughout the industry, including at Accedo, that will try to make the process of an end-to-end video solution more and more sustainable, with less reliance on power for video compression and other use cases. So, from our perspective, we want to essentially partner with other like-minded companies who have sustainability top of mind in their thinking, and we'll be meeting a lot of these types of companies at NAB. Accedo is actually subscribed to being a member of SBTI, which is a science-based target initiative around sustainability. So we've actually set ourselves very, very specific KPIs over the next 3 years to hit. So we're trying to also lay down the gauntlet to the industry, and whether it's partners or competitors, to basically say, without specific targets and goals in mind around sustainability, it becomes this very sort of loosey-goosey type of thing where yes, maybe you're saying it's important to you, but you're not tracking it, you're not measuring it, you're not shooting for specific goals. So I think in general, we want to impart to the industry that it's a critical topic, and we've prioritized it up to the point of actually setting these goals. And we'll sort of explain our process to do that. But the more vendors and more content services that do that, it's obviously going to lead to a bigger revolution within the industry around the topic.
Nail on the head there, Mrugesh, with just measuring. We're a global company, and absolutely, lots of tools that we can use to measure.
Yeah, there's sort of this sense that there's direct impact that we can have on improved sustainability, right? So it can be as simple as reducing our travel footprint. But then there's definitely this huge sort of indirect contribution that we can have to the industry, right? Which it can come from technological innovation. It may be again around how do we just reduce the carbon footprint around deploying and running an OTT service, which is hugely complex, right? It leverages several different technologies to compress video, transcode video, distribute video, etc. We certainly can both influence the ecosystem who sort of work towards these technologies and also come up with new innovations of ourselves. So I think, we have sort of this idea of both direct and indirect contribution to sustainability standards in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see the industry as a whole really start to take sustainability seriously.
Now, Mrugesh, you talk, of course, a lot about some of the cool stuff that Accedo does and what we'll be bringing to NAB. But I'm curious to know, is there anybody that you're looking forward to seeing at NAB in terms of meetups, some cool technologies?
Yeah, so as hopefully most people know, Accedo is a Swedish founded company. But I also like to think of ourselves as Switzerland in many ways. We're fairly agnostic when it comes to working with the industry. We partner with big ecosystem providers and small. We really let the market and our customers sort of decide who's relevant and who's trending and what types of use cases they want to sort of see us work with when it comes to partner integrations. That being said, one particular partnership that we're very bullish about and that we're going to be talking more about at NAB is with the AWS Media and Entertainment team. Accedo today leverages AWS for many of our underlying solutions, in particular Accedo One. But we're also looking to further our partnership with the AWS team and really look at how we can introduce solutions to the market that sort of allow us to work with the AWS workflow and really sort of enable more scalable and highly sort of reliant and performant solutions for the market. We are going to be talking very specifically about a few content verticals like sports with the AWS team at the show. And I think we're certainly just looking to get our solutions, joint solutions, in front of customers and prospects to get that feedback loop going and make sure the learnings are brought into our innovations teams.
What about some of the deployments we want to show? What are we going to be sharing from our recent customer portfolio or some of the recent apps that we've launched?
One of the exciting announcements that we made a few months ago was with Masterclass. So if you're less familiar with Masterclass, they've got this education / entertainment OTT service, and we've helped them launch across a multitude of new device platforms. So we're going to be talking about some of the user experience needs that they had that were unique for not just a lean back audience, but an audience who's highly engaged in learning from the content. So that's one particular brand that we've been supporting over the last couple of years, where I think some of the innovations we've brought in the user experience is exciting, and we'll be sort of showcasing that at our booth. There's also work we've done in the kids space, specifically with Common Sense Networks, which is a for-profit affiliate of Common Sense Media. They've really been focusing on how to sort of launch a kids-focused OTT service that is a safe playground for kids of all age ranges. I think it's a very important initiative that they've undertaken for the industry. There's obviously a lot of brands out there that showcase kids content, but the attention to how to actually make this a safe playground, how to make sure that kids are actually getting enough sort of educational content, subtly or explicitly through the service, is I think a market leader in many ways. And there's been a variety of very specific functionality that we've introduced as part of that service that facilitates this, including the idea of a parent zone, which they've introduced that allows parents to have more robust control over their kids' content behavior. So that's another great example of a deployment that we're going to be talking about. We've continued work with a variety of other more sort of traditional entertainment brands and broadcasters. So we'll be sort of showcasing some of the innovations that we've brought to market with those brands as well. Overall, I think we'll be talking about the variety of different content brands under our portfolio, which span everything from sports to kids content to entertainment brands to lifestyle to fitness OTT. One of the things that has certainly developed over the last few years with Accedo has been the penetration of these new sort of content verticals, if you will. I think that's sort of a key update we want to showcase to the market, that our solutions are not only catered towards sort of the entertainment vertical. We've sort of advanced our frameworks, our tools, our products to cater for content verticals that expect use cases beyond just the series, episodic, and sort of movie content type use cases you see out of entertainment services.
Yeah, I think that we can all agree that lots of cool projects, of course, that Accedo's been working on, a lot of cool technologies as well alongside that. But as you mentioned, Mrugesh, cool verticals. It seems like there's almost a new one just sort of popping up, and we're trying to lead the way in some regard. But there's just so much applicability to, of course, what Accedo does and just how that gets out to market. I think we'll just wrap up here. Obviously, we could talk all day about some of this, the cool stuff that's happening, whether it's Accedo bringing stuff to market or, the NAB show at large. Neil, is there any other questions that we want to leave Mrugesh with, or do you think that we've hit all of them at this time?
Yeah, just one question, Mrugesh. We're gonna surprise you a little bit here. Do you have any advice to product managers or streaming execs at the media companies based on Accedo's latest learnings and customer discussions?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to get to the sort of user feedback loop as fast as possible, right? We've worked with hundreds of brands over the years, and I think the definition of MVP has varied across who we've worked with. If you sort of think about first principles with product thinking, it's just ultra critical that you are getting end user feedback and validation both on your content strategy and user experience as early as possible without sort of over engineering or oversaturating your service with features and functionality. So it sounds like a BAU type of thinking or principle, but we've seen a lot of brands I think sort of over prioritize differentiation, where they probably should have prioritized sort of first mover advantage, getting to market quicker, starting to create focus groups, beta testing, and really validate their value proposition for the OTT market. As opposed to 10 years ago, if you launch an OTT brand today, it's pretty hard to stand out from the crowd, right? So the best way to sort of stand out from the crowd is actually just learn as fast and as quickly from your users, and then make smaller iterative changes through the process. And this is sort of an area we've really tried to hone in on with our products and tools, right? So Accedo is sort of a great designer and builder to launch you to market, but our products and tools actually facilitate things like A/B testing and multivariate testing. We're trying to give you the tools to actually experiment and understand user behavior and what makes them tick, and what leads to more engagement and what leads to reduced churn. So at the end of the day, there's no one that's going to keep you more honest than the people you're hoping to have use your products. So.
Awesome. Well, with that, I mean, Mrugesh, of course, we could be talking all day about some of these cool things. But I think we'll leave it there for now. I believe Neil is actually headed off to NAB himself with you, so I'm a little bit jealous. But perhaps maybe, I don't know, maybe even you two, but you guys can give us a pitch. Where can we find Accedo at NAB? When will you be there? Who's all going? And maybe we'll start there.
So I'll start out and I'll let Neil fill in the gaps. Very much looking forward to being at NAB with Neil, and I believe overall the Accedo presence will be around 15 people. So there'll be folks from North American business units, but also from our Accedo One business units, and also from our global business development team. So that'll be an exciting reunion of sorts, especially as many of us are in different locations. We will have a booth presence on the trade show, and we'll also have a sort of dedicated meeting space as well. So yeah, I mean, do look out for your Accedo representatives. They will be very eager to want to engage with you and talk to you. Some of them may be too eager, so do as you please with them. But yeah, in general, we're just excited to be back at the show. We've got a sort of booth pavilion that we'll showcase everything from our new deployments to sort of our momentum that we've gained with Accedo One innovations, and then also sort of the work we've been doing in extended reality.
That's awesome. Hey, anyways, look, Mrugesh, we 100% appreciate you coming out and being obviously the first inaugural guest on the Accedo Playback podcast. And like, there's just so much to digest in terms of NAB and just, some of the experiences that you get to share with us in the OTT and streaming industry. So, you know what, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And maybe if you'd like, we'd love to have you back on a future episode, if that's okay too.
Absolutely. Happy to be back. And yeah, I think love the energy you're both bringing to this initiative. And looking forward to future guests that you'll be hosting. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, that's all for episode number 1 of the podcast. And thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions about the show, or if you want to reach out to us, send us an email at playback.podcast@accedo.tv, or you can reach out to us on our LinkedIn and check out the details section of the pod for more info. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.